The patient on this steel table isn't a body, it's a code. Your code. While you were looking for your ancestors in a $99 spit kit, a $1 trillion alliance was putting a lien on your biological future. Your DNA is no longer your property. Imagine being denied health insurance in 2040 because of a secret deal signed in 2024. They didn't just sell you a test, they bought your molecular destiny. This is the $10 trillion heist where the commodity is the very fabric of human life itself. You thought it was a gift for your family. The boardrooms thought it was a gold mine. Today, we dissect the strategic betrayal of the genetic testing industry. The Neshtel is ready. The report is final. You are about to see who truly owns you. We begin the primary incision at the terms of service, hidden in plain sight. 99% of users never read the fine print where they grant perpetual, royalty-free licenses to their genetic sequences. The industry built a castle of data on a foundation of manufactured curiosity. Look at the chemical signature of this betrayal. When 23andMe partnered with GSK for $300 million, they weren't sharing science. They were liquidating a human library. Your unique genetic mutations became the R&D department for Big Pharma's next billion-dollar drug. You paid them to exploit you. The autopsy reveals biological foreclosure. Once a company patents a specific gene sequence derived from your spit, they technically own the rights to the cure for your potential cancer. The strategy was to privatize the human genome, one family tree at a time. Observe the strategic anesthetic, the marketing of nostalgia. By focusing on long-lost cousins and ancestral regions, they masked the clinical extraction of high-value medical data. The consumer was too distracted by their 12% Scandinavian heritage to notice the corporate lien being placed on their biology, the rise of genetic discrimination. The autopsy finds a necrotic link between data brokers and insurance algorithms. In the shadows, your genetic predispositions are being traded like subprime mortgages. A single marker for heart disease in your DNA could cost your children their financial security. Examine the data leak necrosis. When these companies face bankruptcy or hacks, your most intimate code becomes a black market commodity. Unlike a password, you cannot change your DNA. The strategic failure of digital security has turned your biological identity into a permanent, unfixable vulnerability. We find a massive blockage in informed consent. The complexity of genetic data was used as a weapon. By overwhelming the user with science fiction promises, they bypassed the fundamental right to body autonomy. The autopsy shows that the soul was sold for a colorful PDF report. The Pharma-Capture strategy. Pharmaceutical giants realized it's cheaper to buy an existing database of 10 million people than to run 20 years of clinical trials. You didn't just provide data, you became a permanent, unpaid clinical trial subject in a laboratory you never visited. Look at the Ancestry rebranding. Why did they pivot to health reports? Because the Ancestry market saturated. To maintain growth, they had to monetize the fear of the future. The strategy shifted from looking at the past to predicting and owning the medical failures of your body. Observe the privacy illusion. They promise de-identified data, but genetic code is the ultimate identifier. You cannot anonymize a unique sequence of 3 billion letters. The strategy was to lie about anonymity until the database was too large to regulate. The trap is now shut. The intergenerational heist. By testing yourself, you also exposed your siblings, parents, and children without their consent. The industry exploited family bonds to build a biological map of entire populations. One person's curiosity became a whole family's genetic exposure. The collateral damage is total. The autopsy reveals monopoly on cures. When the data is centralized, competition dies. Small labs cannot afford the licensing fees for patented genes. This is the strategic death of innovation. We find that the most effective medicines of 2030 will be owned by the companies that bought your spit in 2020. Examine the government collaboration necrosis. Law enforcement uses these databases to build a permanent biological panopticon. Your gift to your family became a permanent surveillance tool for the state. The strategic alliance between tech and the law has turned your cells into a digital footprint. The monetization of fear. They send you a notification saying you have a 20% higher risk of Alzheimer's. Then they show you an ad for a supplement they happen to manufacture. The strategy was to create the patient and the provider in the same digital ecosystem. Look at the strategic bankruptcy maneuver. When a DNA company fails, its most valuable asset, the data, is sold to the highest bidder. Your biological code could be owned by a foreign hedge fund or a predatory data broker. The autopsy shows that your life's blueprint is a liquidation asset, the ethical decay of modern medicine. Doctors are becoming secondary to data scientists. The strategy was to move healthcare from the clinic to the cloud. We find that the diagnostic power has shifted from the stethoscope to the server farm. The human touch has been replaced by a cold algorithm. Examine the biological copyright heist. If your DNA produces a rare protein, a company can patent the process of extracting it. You are the factory, but they own the patent on the smoke. The strategic exploitation of the human body has reached its final frontier, the Ancestry entrapment. They offer free updates to your report to keep you engaged. Every click provides more behavioral data to link with your genetics. The strategy was to turn a one-time test into a lifelong subscription to your own biology. You're paying to watch yourself rot. We find neurotargeting in the marketing files. Companies use genetic traits like impulsivity to target you with high-stakes gambling or predatory loans. The strategy was to use your biological weaknesses against your financial health. The autopsy reveals a perfect predatory circle of profit, the golden state of genetic surveillance. The industry lobbied against genetic privacy acts to ensure the flow of data remained unrestricted. They bought the silence of regulators with the promise of medical breakthroughs. The strategic goal was a world without biological secrets. Look at the synthetic biology pivot. Companies are now using the databases to build synthetic versions of high-value genes. Your code was the blueprint for a product that will eventually replace the need for your own existence. The strategy was to use the original to build the superior copy. The subscription to life necrosis. In 2026, personalized medicine is the only medicine. But to access it, you must keep your data active in the corporate cloud. The strategy was to turn survival into a monthly recurring revenue stream. If you stop paying, the algorithm stops caring. We find asset stripping of the human race. The most valuable part of a person is no longer their labor, but their library of mutations. The strategy was to move the economy from production to extraction. You are the oil field, and the kit was the drill. Dissect the strategic silence of the media. Why aren't we warned? Because the tech giants also own the platforms where information flows. The strategy was to flood the zone with feel-good stories, while the biological heist continued in the shadows. The autopsy reveals a systemic failure of truth, the post-human ledger. We find that the industry is already preparing for a future where genetic data is linked to social credit scores. The strategy was to build the infrastructure of control while calling it personalized wellness. The soul is being cataloged for the next great social experiment. Look at the biopatent necrosis. Over 20% of the human genome is already under patent protection. The strategy was to own the building blocks of life before the public realized they were up for sale. The autopsy reveals that you are living in a body you technically rent. The algorithm as God's strategy. We no longer ask doctors, we ask the database. The tech giants have successfully positioned themselves as the ultimate arbiters of health. The strategic goal was to replace the human conscience with a corporate recommendation engine. Mission accomplished. We find willpower atrophy in the users. They become obsessed with their risk scores, leading to a state of permanent health anxiety. The strategy was to make the consumer so afraid of their own biology that they will pay anything for corporate guidance. Fear is the ultimate subscription driver. The genetic wealth gap. Only the rich will afford to edit out the risks their ancestors sold to the companies. The strategy was to create a biological class system. The autopsy reveals that the 1% are building a new, synthetic nobility, while the rest are left with the debt of their genes. The neural flattening of history. By reducing your heritage to a series of percentages, they destroyed the cultural depth of human existence. The strategy was to turn history into a commodity. The autopsy shows that your ancestors' struggles were liquidated into a marketing campaign for a spit kit. The identity fragmentation of the modern soul. Users now view themselves as a collection of risks and traits, not as a human being. The strategy was to shatter our sense of self so they could sell us back the pieces. Total cognitive liquidation has been achieved. We find neuro-refinement in the corporate files. They are already testing how to use genetic data to influence political voting patterns. The strategy was to use the genetic lien to control the future of democracy. The soul is being cataloged for the ultimate political harvest. Final verdict: the genetic lien is the most successful heist in human history. The 10 trillion giants have successfully privatized the blueprints of life. The patient, body autonomy, is dead. What remains is a biological asset in a corporate portfolio. The autopsy is complete. The surgical lamp flickers. The report is signed. We have documented the death of biological privacy and the industrialization of the human soul. To the data lords, you aren't human. You are just a permanent, royalty-free license to be harvested forever. The heist is finished. Look at the empty spit kit on the table. It looks harmless, doesn't it? But it's the signature on your own biological death warrant. The strategy was to make the trap look like a gift. Mission accomplished. The future is owned by those who have the key to your code. Can the patient survive? Only through a total global reclamation of genetic rights. But the data is already in the cloud, in the servers, in the bank. The death of ownership is complete. You no longer own your cells. The giants have a permanent lien on your existence. The lights go out. The shimmering swab on the table no longer glows. The necrosis of biological property has been documented. Until the next autopsy, when we dissect the next corporate titan. This is Business Autopsy Insights. Report closed. RIP Biological Freedom. Your price was a family tree.